President Trump has insisted the ceasefire in Gaza is still in place, despite a weekend of violence which saw Israel and Hamas accuse each other of breaching the deal. Well, health officials in the territory say that Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 40 people. Israel says the strikes were in response to attacks on its troops. International journalists, including the BBC, are banned from reporting from Gaza. Lucy Williamson reports now from Jerusalem.
9 days of quiet. Then this. Gaza's ceasefire hung by a thread as Israel struck targets across the south and centre of the Strip. In response, it said, to attacks by Hamas on its troops. Among the targets, this beachfront cafe, where a senior Hamas commander and 5 other fighters were killed. But doctors said many of those arriving at hospital were civilians, including children. Where is the agreement? Demanded displaced resident Rafat al-Makdid. Where is Trump? And where are those who guaranteed this weak deal? Israel's army has denied reports that its response was triggered by a clash between Hamas and a pro-Israel militia in Rafah, saying Hamas had launched several direct attacks on its troops. It released this footage showing the moment, it says, Hamas fighters crossed into an area under Israeli military control and were hit by an airstrike.
Today, the IDF announced terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards our troops operating in the area of Rafah to dismantle terrorist infrastructure, all in accordance with the ceasefire agreement. Now, in response, the IDF began striking in the area to eliminate the threat.
Hamas said it remained committed to the truce and had found the body of another Israeli hostage, which it would hand over if field conditions allowed. But its presence on the streets is a reminder that the next steps in this deal, including a transfer of power, still have to be hammered out. Until then, this truce is holding Gaza in a fragile limbo between an unfinished war and a yet unknown peace. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Let's get live to our Middle East correspondent, Yolande Knell, who's in Jerusalem. And Yolande, we know that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are expected to be travelling to the region today. What are they likely to want to do to maintain the ceasefire?
So according to Israeli media, those 2 special envoys have already arrived from the US. They had been expected here to talk about phase 2 of the ceasefire deal, how to move things forwards. But it looks like, even before they left from the US, they were having to shore up the existing ceasefire deal. Now, the key questions that remain unresolved from President Trump's peace plan are all about the future of Gaza, the future of Hamas, who will govern there, how to get Hamas to disarm, what the security situation will be like in Gaza so that ultimately Gaza can be rebuilt. At the moment, it all looks very uncertain, and they are looking too, of course, to the regional mediators who've had such an important role here. We know that in Cairo today, you've got the Hamas chief negotiator, Khalil al-Hayya. He's been meeting Egyptian mediators. There are Palestinian political factions due to meet there as well.
And Yolande, on the ground, how have the weekend's events left people feeling? Because presumably there was huge relief last week, and that must now have been rocked. I mean, confidence in the ceasefire must have been rocked.
Definitely. I mean, this really caused a lot of uncertainty. And of course, there were many people grieving lost loved ones. There was one father who was burying his son this morning in Khan Yunis. He was a 14-year-old boy killed in a tent in Al-Muwasi just yesterday. And his father said that throughout the war, he had kept him by his side. And then because this ceasefire was in place with what he said were international guarantees, he'd felt confident in the past few days just to let his son have a taste of freedom going out with his friends. And then he heard, people calling him from the hospital yesterday to say that his son's body was in the morgue, that he had been killed. 45 people killed across the Gaza Strip, according to hospitals and other sources as well in the past day. But, now there is a bit of a sense that things are back on in terms of the ceasefire. But still, you know, one person told me that the market prices, you know, such is the kind of volatility of all of this, when he went out to go and buy things in the market, already, you know, there had been panic buying. He said he couldn't find any flour in the centre of the Gaza Strip yesterday, and prices had risen for people as a result of all of this.
Yulan, now, thanks very much.